Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, SpaceX's historic IPO mints the world's first trillionaire. The AI industry hits a major software bottleneck, and, well, the global political map is redrawing itself in real time.
It's a heavy day today for sure.
It really is. And look, our mission today is entirely focused on you, the listener. We're going to process a raw wire of the day's most viral cultural and market signals, cutting straight through the noise to find the actual second-order effects.
Right, because while you focus on the big numbers and the sheer, scale of these technological leaps, I'll be tracking the fallout.
Which is what you do best.
I try. Because if we actually analyze the friction in today's data, a much more cynical underlying vibe emerges. I mean, we're witnessing a massive accelerating shift from public trust and civic infrastructure directly into the hands of private hyper-optimized monopolies.
Wow. Okay, let's actually test that theory right away by looking at the physical infrastructure of our planet, or I guess the infrastructure rapidly being built just outside our atmosphere.
Yeah, low Earth orbit is getting crowded.
Extremely. We're tracking a monumental market event. There's a post absolutely dominating the timeline from @unusualwhales detailing an NBC report that Elon Musk is nearing trillionaire status.
Right, driven by the IPO.
Exactly. The driving force here is SpaceX's expected IPO around June 12th, which carries a staggering valuation of over $1.7 trillion. Musk's 80+% stake is it's projected to push his current net worth over that unprecedented $1 trillion threshold.
See, that level of wealth concentration is it's difficult for the human brain to even process.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a number on a screen at that point.
But the wealth itself is just a byproduct. The real story for anyone listening, whether you work in, logistics, telecom, or manufacturing, is the mechanism generating that wealth. We have to examine what a $1.7 trillion valuation actually represents in low Earth orbit.
Well, the data paints a very clear picture of that mechanism. A data scientist named @Kremuraku shared a stacked area chart of satellite launches today, and the visual is honestly just shocking.
It's completely vertical, right?
Literally vertical. Before 2020, the chart is a gentle slope. Post-2020, Starlink's deployment line goes entirely straight up. I mean, they've deployed over 12,000 satellites, with 1,300 of those launched in early 2026 alone.
It's just massive scale.
Yeah, Starlink now accounts for 65% of all active satellites in orbit. They are vastly eclipsing the combined totals of China, Russia, and the rest of the U.S.
Which, forces us to re-examine the consensus narrative around this kind of innovation.
How so?
Well, the public story is about reusable Falcon 9 rockets driving down the cost of access to space. And sure, that is an undeniable triumph of engineering.
Definitely.
But what we are actually watching is the dawn of an unregulated global monopoly. A single private citizen effectively controls the sky. And to understand the implications for you, the listener, we need to look past the idea of Starlink just providing, internet to remote cabins.
Right, it's way bigger than that now.
It's exactly. Consider a post today from the official @Starlink account. It showcased expeditionary manufacturing teams using Starlink dishes mounted on portable CNC machine shop containers, and they're deployed directly on city streets.
I saw that footage. They essentially dropped heavy industrial equipment inside standard shipping containers operating on a high-speed satellite uplink. It looked like science fiction.
But it's real. Think about the physics of global supply chains for a moment. Previously, if you wanted to build a complex machined part, you needed a massive factory wired with heavy telecom infrastructure.
Right.
Now, you can drop a container in the Sahara Desert or a rural highway, slap a dish on it, and it is instantly connected to a real-time global network.
So an engineer in Tokyo can send a massive multi-gigabyte 3D blueprint to a machine in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, and it instantly begins manufacturing. Starlink is no longer just consumer internet. It is the fundamental communication backbone for a new mobile industrial complex.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It is. But who regulates the geopolitical power of a single private entity owning the central nervous system of global industry?
That's the $1 million, or I guess $1 trillion question. But I hear that concern, I do. What about the sheer cultural force driving this, though? It's almost immune to traditional regulatory friction because the public is so captivated by the origin story.
Well, a cult of personality is definitely a factor.
Totally. Like a post from @John went viral today featuring an old 60 Minutes clip. In it, Musk explains he became SpaceX's chief technology officer simply by reading textbooks and talking to smart people.
Right, because traditional aerospace engineers thought the startup was a joke and refused to join.
Exactly. And the cultural worship around this is so fervent that a creator named Atforce literally built a custom, highly detailed lunar surface studio set near Austin,
Yeah.
complete with spacesuits and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, just putting it out there on the timeline in hopes of scoring a sudden interview with Musk.
See, that fervent culture is the ultimate corporate shield.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. When you package a trillion-dollar infrastructure takeover in the narrative of a self-taught maverick proving the establishment wrong, the public cheers for the monopoly instead of questioning its long-term structural implications.
I want to challenge your framing here, though. Are we looking at the modern equivalent of the East India Company? Like a private entity wielding the power of a sovereign nation-state?
Honestly, yes.
Or is this just the natural consequence of traditional aerospace moving at the speed of bureaucratic paperwork, while private capital moves at the speed of light?
I would argue it's both, and the historical parallel is incredibly apt. I mean, the British East India Company formed because the Crown simply couldn't scale its bureaucracy fast enough to capture global trade.
Right.
SpaceX exists because NASA and legacy defense contractors couldn't move fast enough to capture low Earth orbit. However, history tells us how the East India Company era ended.
Well,
No. Eventually, the power imbalance between a private corporation and sovereign nations becomes too extreme to sustain without conflict.
that's a sobering thought. So, physical infrastructure is centralizing in space and scaling flawlessly.
Yeah.
But if we look down at the ground, the digital infrastructure of the AI revolution is hitting a massive terrestrial bottleneck.
Boo, big time. Capital is suddenly demanding actual measurable utility from AI, not just entertaining parlor tricks.
Right. The market is finally waking up from the hype cycle. It seems that way, at least. And the frustration is perfectly encapsulated in a viral post from a Stripe CEO at Patrick.
Yeah, that post was everywhere today.
It really was. He is on publicly crowdsourcing a new kind of large language model workflow tool. He explicitly says he does not want another chatbot.
Thank God.
Exactly.
Meh.
What he's asking for is something that acts like, quote, GNU Auto Tools meets Notion.
Which is a very specific request.
Very.
Yeah.
He wants real-time collaboration, version control for the prompts you feed the AI, the ability to manage complex markdown files, and, shareable outputs that actually compile into working code or projects.
To put this in perspective for the listener, we need to strip away the jargon for a second.
Please do.
GNU Auto Tools is an old-school suite of programming utilities that helps software build and compile itself across different systems, while Notion is a modern visual workspace for organizing documents and teams.
Right. Very different eras of tech.
Exactly. If the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar financial tech giant is begging social media for a tool that combines these concepts, it signals a massive failure at the enterprise layer of the AI boom.
Wow. It essentially means the internal R&D at these tech giants hasn't solved the most basic problem of how to actually use AI for daily work.
Yes. Think of current AI models like a hyper-intelligent brain floating in a jar.
Okay, read visual, but go on.
It knows everything,
Yeah.
but it has no hands, no
No.
nervous system, and no tools to actually interact with the physical world. We have thousands of companies burning billions of dollars on compute power to make the brain slightly smarter.
But nobody is building the arms and legs.
Precisely. To use another analogy, we spend billions building a Ferrari engine, but we forgot to build a steering wheel, transmission, or a paved road to drive it on.
The replies to his post are incredibly revealing about who is actually trying to pave that road, though. The builders pitching solutions in his replies are focused on concepts like replit VMs and paperclip orchestration.
Which is where the real work is happening.
Yeah, and for anyone outside of software engineering, a VM is a virtual machine. It essentially gives the AI its own private computer environment where it can safely write code, run it, test it, and interact with other software.
Rather than just spitting out text on a chat screen that a human has to manually copy and paste,
Exactly.
those builders creating persistent virtual environments are the ones who will capture the real financial value over the next decade. The era of making money off a slightly faster chatbot is completely over.
It's all about the underlying systems now.
Yes, the real money is in the unsexy scaffolding that allows AI to do actual labor.
What I find fascinating here is the secondary effect of this bottleneck. Is this lack of intuitive tooling a temporary bug, or does it currently act as a protective feature for incumbent tech monopolies?
Oh, it's absolutely a feature right now.
Right. Because right now, the barrier to entry for everyday businesses trying to adopt AI is incredibly high. If you own a mid-sized logistics company, you don't have a dedicated team of engineers to build custom virtual environments.
No, you don't.
So does the fact that AI is so difficult to integrate practically guarantee that only mega corporations can harvest its productivity gains.
That friction is absolutely functioning as a moat. If the interface remains esoteric and it requires a computer science degree to orchestrate, the wealth generated by AI will remain highly concentrated at the top.
Until someone builds a bridge.
Exactly. The moment a startup successfully builds the notion for LLMs that Patrick Collison is asking for, a simple visual dashboard for AI labor, that moat evaporates.
Suddenly, every small business on Earth gains access to enterprise-grade automation.
Bingo.
Okay, so we have technological systems that are either monopolizing the sky or completely failing to scale at the software level. But this friction in our digital tools is mirroring a much deeper fracture in our societal infrastructure.
The real-world consequences are starting to show.
They really are. Based on the timeline today, the legacy systems of law, order, and politics appear to be actively collapsing. And before we dive into this data matrix, I want to establish something crucial with you, the listener.
Very important disclaimer coming up.
Yes. We are about to analyze highly charged political data points originating from entirely different sides of the political spectrum. We are absolutely not taking a side, nor are we endorsing any of these specific viewpoints.
We're just reading the room.
Exactly. Our mission is to impartially report on the raw cultural shifts happening in the source material and dissect what they signal about the broader global vibe.
And when you analyze these points collectively, the vibe is characterized by a profound and volatile erosion of public faith.
It really is. Instead of looking at these as isolated news stories, let's look at them as symptoms of the same underlying condition. The overarching theme today is a total collapse in institutional trust.
A total collapse.
For instance, we see a complete breakdown in trust regarding the judicial mechanism in the U.S. A post from @America, which is a PAC founded by Elon Musk, is arguing for much harsher punishments for violent repeat offenders.
Right, and they brought data to back it up.
They did. They're citing U.S. Sentencing Commission data showing that violent offenders recidivate at a rate of 64% within 8 years, compared to just 38% for nonviolent ones.
Which is a huge gap.
Huge. And the public discourse around this isn't just about crime, it's about the feeling that the system itself is fundamentally broken.
You see that exact same sentiment across the Atlantic, manifesting as a crisis of faith in the equal application of the law.
Yes, looking at the UK, there is a viral post from @TheAlisSmith highlighting a massive rhetorical shift regarding what citizens are calling two-tier policing.
The term is everywhere right now.
It really is. The core of the anger is the perception that the police treat different groups with different levels of severity based on politics or demographics. She points out that officials like Keir Starmer initially denied this phenomenon existed entirely.
But the narrative changed.
Right. Yet now, Justice Secretary David Lammy is publicly justifying differential treatment by police based on cultural or religious factors. He cited the Jewish Sabbath as an example, all while the controversial Henry Nowak murder case dominates the headlines.
And look, when voters lose faith in the justice system and the police, they inevitably abandon their traditional political alignments.
Which brings us directly to the electoral data in Texas. A post from @DemocraticWins is reporting on the 2026 Texas Senate race. They're claiming that Republican Ken Paxton, who carries a powerful Trump endorsement, by the way, is rapidly losing must-win Latino support to Democrat James Tellerico.
That's a massive demographic shift.
It is. Historically, there was an assumption that conservative Latino voters in Texas were a locked-in demographic for legacy Republicans. But the post points to immediate material issues like the sheer cost of living, border concerns, and Paxton's past scandals driving a massive pivot.
When you weave these three disparate data points together, the narrative is crystal clear. The center is simply not holding.
Not at all.
You have voters in Texas abandoning deeply entrenched political figures because legacy party platforms aren't fixing their daily economic reality. You have citizens in the UK openly questioning the foundational concept of equal justice under the law.
Right.
And you have American voters looking at raw recidivism statistics and demanding an overhaul of the judicial framework. The systems built in the 20th century are just failing to manage 21st century realities.
Honestly, there was a post today that brilliantly, accidentally captures this feeling of terrestrial decay. NASA astronaut at Astrojeska posted these absolutely stunning photos of an aurora australis from orbit.
Oh, I saw those.
They're incredible, right? It's this vivid, breathtaking green and red light show dancing across the curvature of the Earth, caused by a G3 solar storm.
The imagery is spectacular, but the context surrounding the photo is incredibly dark.
The context is wild. She posted the beautiful photos specifically to reassure the public that the crew was safe. Why? Because they just had to shelter in place due to a dangerous air leak in the Russian segment of the International Space Station.
Unbelievable.
Think about the symbolism of that for a moment. The International Space Station is arguably the highest, most complex diplomatic and engineering achievement in human history.
Yeah.
And it is literally springing leaks and forcing emergency evacuations while the astronauts sit there watching a beautiful, chaotic light show outside the window. Isn't that the perfect metaphor for global politics right now?
It is profoundly poetic. I mean, the legacy frameworks keeping us alive are springing leaks. They require constant patching just to maintain a baseline of survival.
It's duct tape and prayers at this point.
And much like those astronauts looking out the window, the public is simultaneously distracted by and subjected to massive cultural and economic storms entirely outside of their control.
Which naturally leads us to how the public attempts to cope with all this systemic stress. Historically, when terrestrial and global institutions fail, capital flows heavily into entertainment because people desperately need escapism.
You need a break.
Exactly, but what our data shows today is that the institutions providing that escapism are no longer optimizing for joy or creativity. They are optimizing for strict algorithmic financial return on investment.
Escapism has been fully financialized. The corporate entities producing our culture are currently operating from a place of intense risk aversion, hoarding cash instead of taking creative leaps.
We see the mechanics of this risk aversion clearly in a report from @CultureCrave today. Paramount has outright canceled Saber Interactive's massive AAA video game based on the Avatar, The Last Airbender universe.
Which is a huge blow to fans.
Massive. This wasn't a minor project. It was supposed to be a huge role-playing game set thousands of years before the main timeline in the Ice Wars era. But following the Skydance merger, executives simply cited a lack of conviction and killed the project entirely.
Unsurprising, honestly.
And meanwhile, Netflix is demonstrating the exact opposite of creative risk. They are retreating to the safest, most established intellectual property possible, announcing a Ghostbusters night shift animated series for 2027.
Right. To understand the mechanism behind these decisions, you have to look at how Hollywood and gaming executives model risk on spreadsheets today.
It's all just math to them.
A bold, original expansion of a beloved universe like the Avatar game requires massive upfront capital, creative conviction, and an appetite for failure. A reboot of a 1980s franchise like Ghostbusters that comes with a pre-existing audience and a highly predictable modeled return on investment.
They aren't in the business of making art anymore.
No, they're in the business of managing quarterly risk profiles.
And we are seeing this exact same cold, calculated ROI obsession dictating the sports economy, too. Let's look at the infrastructure of athletics. A viral post from @HomeGymCoop points out that college football weight rooms are now drastically superior to the facilities used by the NFL.
Which sounds completely backwards.
It does. The post uses footage of the Seattle Seahawks' incredibly dated, bare-bones 2007 gym as the prime example of this disparity.
On the surface, it seems entirely counterintuitive that billion-dollar professional franchises have worse equipment than universities. But it makes perfect sense when you analyze the different economic incentives driving them.
Because it comes down to customer acquisition versus asset management.
Exactly.
The colleges are using these flashy, multi-million-dollar weight rooms as marketing infrastructure. They need them to recruit 18-year-old high school players and to woo mega donors who want to feel like they're funding a cutting-edge program.
They're selling a dream.
Right. But the NFL teams owned by billionaires operate on a completely different model. They already have the players under legally binding contracts. They don't need to market the facility to them.
Yep.
They just want a strict return on investment regarding player health. So they provide some basic free weights, a few stability balls, and focus solely on getting the asset back on the field.
It is a philosophy of ruthless efficiency. We see the same machine-like approach dominating global football today, too.
Oh, for sure.
For example, at Premier League, highlighted England's 1-0 World Cup warm-up win over New Zealand. The manager, Thomas Tuchel, was rotating 11 different players at halftime in 32 degrees Celsius heat in Florida.
Just swapping out the whole squad.
He wasn't trying to put on an entertaining show for the fans who bought tickets. It was a clinical, data-driven exercise in load management and stress testing a 17-year-old debutante named Gumoja.
Wild.
Or consider the report from @Fabrizio Romano regarding Argentina's Leo Bellardi, who was out with a training injury. The immediate reaction from the fan base wasn't concern for the human being.
Of course not.
The machine logic instantly kicked in, with fans scrambling to suggest Marco Senesi as a plug-and-play replacement part.
Wow. So if we zoom out, we have a landscape where media corporations are killing ambitious projects to hoard cash, NFL billionaires are refusing to upgrade their gyms, and international sports are treated like data science experiments.
It's bleak.
Everything in our culture is hyper-optimized and calculated. Yet the most universally loved moment on the entire timeline today, the one piece of data that genuinely brought everyone together, cost $0 corporate dollars and defied all algorithmic logic.
You're referring to the incident at the baseball game, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a viral post from the official @MLB account that completely breaks the mold. A Philadelphia Phillies fan is sitting in the stands, minding his own business, holding his pizza and a hot dog.
Classic setup.
Suddenly, a foul ball splashes right into his food, completely destroying his meal. Immediately, without hesitation, another fan sitting nearby just buys him a replacement meal.
That's nice.
But the chain reaction doesn't stop there. The fan who got the new food turns around and generously shares it with the guy behind him, the guy who initially missed the catch and caused the mess in the first place.
What makes that clip so powerful is that it represents a spontaneous breakdown of the hyper-optimized zero-sum game we've been discussing.
Absolutely. To bring it all together, we track trillions of dollars in space monopolies, billions in AI infrastructure, and the massive financialization of global sports.
Yeah.
But the ultimate viral ROI today, the thing that generated millions of views and genuine goodwill, what Philly calls brotherly love, came from a dropped hot dog and basic human decency. So I have to ask, in a world governed by spreadsheets, are corporations completely overthinking what audiences actually crave?
They absolutely are, because the one thing you cannot model on a risk management spreadsheet is genuine human connection.
That's a great point.
Corporations build incredibly sophisticated algorithms to maximize our engagement through political outrage or, 1980s nostalgia, but they cannot engineer serendipity.
Yep.
That baseball clip dominated the timeline because it was a rare moment of unscripted empathy in a world that feels increasingly scripted, cynical, and transactional. It is the one commodity you cannot buy with venture capital, which makes it the most valuable content we saw today.
That is a phenomenal synthesis of today's data. All right, before we wrap up this deep dive, it's time to look ahead. Based on the mechanisms and trends we've unpacked today, what is your prediction for tomorrow?
My prediction is that we are about to witness a violent rotation in where the smart money is deployed.
Okay, where's it going?
Well, with the impending SpaceX IPO pulling massive amounts of capital toward orbital infrastructure, and Patrick Collison's public plea exposing the severe lack of software tooling, watch for venture capital to completely abandon the consumer space.
Really? Completely.
The money is going to flee from entertainment apps, flashy generative chatbots, and anything relying on consumer attention. Instead, is going to flow strictly into heavy, unsexy industrial software.
The picks and shovels.
Exactly. The teams building the underlying supply chain logistics for space manufacturing and the actual foundational infrastructure for enterprise AI workflows are about to see a tidal wave of funding. The era of funding the digital toy is over. The era of funding the industrial tool has begun.
That is a fundamental shift in the market that we will definitely be tracking closely. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Lay it on them.
If one private citizen now controls 65% of the active satellites in the sky, laying the groundwork to become our first trillionaire, while our elected governments bicker over basic policing and our international space stations literally leak oxygen, are we slowly, quietly outsourcing global governance to the private sector without ever actually casting a vote?
It certainly feels that way.
Something to deeply consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay vigilant out there, keep questioning the consensus, and we will catch you next time.